Hello and welcome. I'm Claire Feldman, your host and guide on this journey to thriving in private practice without the burnout. Are you a passionate therapist who's struggling with the entrepreneurial side of things? Do you wish you could serve great fit clients at times that suit you? Are you seeking financial stability so you can continue doing what you love? If so, then you're in the right place. I know firsthand the difficulties of navigating the business aspects of therapy, from building a website to managing social media, but I've made all the mistakes so you don't have to. Together we'll explore how you can build and grow your dream practice. So let's get started. Hello and a very warm welcome to today's podcast episode where we are going to be talking all about comparisonitis. Now, if this is a phrase that you haven't heard before, it is pretty self-explanatory, but just in case you haven't heard it, it's basically where, as therapists, we are spending too much time giving our energy away to maybe checking out, comparing ourselves to what other therapists in private practice are doing. So that could look like, say, for another therapist that works within a similar niche to you, that you're spending time doing your research, looking at their social media accounts, looking at the content they're creating, looking at their website and seeing what they're doing. Now, is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? So let's start maybe with the good. Speaking from my experience, whenever I was getting set up in private practice, it was really important for me to be able to see that other people could do certain things. So when I was looking at other therapists specializing in binge eating, when I came across a couple of therapists that specialized in my niche area, and I could see that they had created like a really high quality branding around their private practice, that they'd created, I guess, different services. So they were moving away from the pay per session sort of model. They were creating packages, creating a lot of resources. They had email lists, they were writing newsletters. They were doing all of these different aspects of their marketing that I hadn't really seen done before. And their fee structure was different. They were charging a more premium fee. That whenever I seen this, it gave me the confidence and the assurance to know that that actually was possible for me. Because what I really did desire is that I wanted to work with a smaller caseload. And in order to work with a smaller caseload, I needed to be charging a more premium fee. And so when I seen that this was being done by these therapists that I'd found by searching on the internet, it gave me the assurance that that could also be possible for me and that that was something that I wanted to do. And that is why I've then gone on to do. I've done that very thing. I've created a high quality website, branding, changed my services to be slightly different from traditional look, and I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that had I not have gone down that research, not looked at what other therapists were doing and saying that it's okay for you. It's okay for you to do things a little bit differently, from what other people are doing. So that is where going down that sort of route and doing that research and checking out other therapists that are in your nation, in your area, that's where it can be helpful. When can it not be helpful? I am 100% guilty of comparisonitis. Not so much now in terms of my private practice. I've sort of moved beyond that and I'm very content there. Probably more so now being in the mentoring space that I can definitely go down the comparisonitis route of looking at what other coaches, other mentors, etc. are doing, and then getting all caught up in comparing myself to them. And the reality is, when we are maybe going and looking and checking out what other people are doing, often it's when it's in a moment of vulnerability for us, that perhaps we are feeling, maybe you're new to private practice, maybe you don't have confidence on social media, maybe you struggle with imposter syndrome, maybe you have these fears about showing up and being visible. And so in a moment where perhaps you're feeling a little bit sensitive, you're feeling a little bit vulnerable, and then you go and look at these other accounts, all it's doing is reaffirming this insecurity that you're already feeling. Because whenever you go and look for research, look for information that other people are doing better, or that you perceive that other people are doing better, that's exactly what you're going to find. That's exactly what you're going to come across. And so perhaps maybe as a therapist, if you notice that maybe you are spending a lot of time on social media, maybe, like I said, the intention is a good one initially, that you're doing it to try and get content creation ideas or get inspiration, but that you notice that when you're doing it, you're starting to enter into a really unhelpful dialogue about yourself, then maybe it might be time to just notice that and to pull back a little bit. What I would say is, like, from my own experience of this and from conversations that I've had with other therapists in private practice, I think what we often do is we look at things, particularly on social media, we look at things through rose tinted glasses. And so when people are posting things on social media, or maybe they do a post and it goes viral, maybe there's loads of engagement, loads of comments, that we make all sorts of assumptions about what that might mean for that other person without having the evidence behind it. So we can make all sorts of assumptions about, well, they must have a full practice, they must have a wait list, they must have this. But actually, we have no idea what is going on behind the scenes. That having a big following or having lots of engagement doesn't necessarily equate to having a full practice full of clients. The other thing that I think is really important to remember as well is that what a full practice looks like is wildly different for different people. So a full practice for me, for example, would be between 8 and 10 clients. That would be my practice full. For other therapists, a full practice might be 25. So when we maybe are looking at other therapists who are saying DM, I have a wait list, etc., and you're sitting there and you've maybe only got 1 or 2 clients, or you haven't attracted any clients yet, and you're automatically feeling like a failure, just bear in mind that what a full practice looks like for them could be very different from you. The other thing as well is that a full practice for somebody might be a full practice, but from a variety of sources. So for me personally, I work fully in self-funded private practice. I don't receive referrals from other organizations. I don't work for EAPs any longer or anything like that. But other therapists who might be full in their practice, that might be a combination of self-referring clients, but also through EAP and other organizations that they're working with as well. And obviously that is very different when you're working for an organization versus you being fully in self-funded private practice, trying to attract your own clients also. So there's always lots of nuances to things. And sometimes we need to have the ability to take the rose tinted glasses off and to not make assumptions about the success or what we believe to be the success that other people are having. Now, that being said, there are therapists out there that are absolutely killing it. There are therapists out there that are killing it on social media, that they're thriving, that being on places like Instagram is their natural platform. They do really well marketing themselves on it, and they are attracting referrals, they are attracting inquiries through, and they're doing really well. And what I would say to that is, as much as perhaps that might trigger something in you, it might trigger insecurity, it might trigger envy, and it's totally normal for those sorts of feelings potentially to come up. What I would encourage you to try and see it as possibility, that this is something that could be, if that is what you desire, of course, that this could be something that is possible for you. And is there something that I can learn here? For me personally, like, a platform like Instagram isn't necessarily my preferred platform. It's not really a platform that I feel particularly at my best or my most creative. That being said, though, that I think there are great opportunities for me to learn from other therapists that actually do really well on that platform. So amazing people like Elsie Owen, like Lauren Baird, who seem to be absolute naturals on Instagram, that actually there's great opportunity for me to connect and learn from those people. And I think that that is something that certainly over the last 6 months to a year is something I have been leaning into much, much more, is the power of connection with other therapists. So you may or may not know that earlier in this year, I hosted a summit. It was the Prosper in Private Practice Virtual Summit, where we had over 25 guest speakers who were talking about all things business, marketing, and mindset related for private practice success. And as part of that, I actually interviewed a number of different therapists that have been successful in private practice. And they've all been successful in different ways. So, some of them, for example, Lauren, that I just mentioned, has built up a practice around Instagram. So has Elsie, the people pleasing therapist. She's also had great success with running courses as well. We talked to Sarah, the binge eating therapist, who has had great success off YouTube. So I spoke to people that had really marketed their private practices in a variety of different ways. And I think the really interesting thing and the big learning for me in that was that even though a number of those people that I had interviewed technically would be competitors in that they also offer therapist mentoring services, that actually the power of connection was so much greater than competition because we all have very different and unique skill sets. So, like Lauren, her strength is absolutely around Instagram and creativity around that. I am much more into, I love podcasting, but I also love like email marketing as well. So, we all have slightly different areas of strength. And actually, isn't that a great opportunity that number one, that potentially that we can learn from each other's skill sets, and but also from a client perspective, that we will attract different types of therapists into our services depending on what their needs are and what they're looking for. And so whenever I translate that into yourselves as therapists in private practice, it's kind of exactly the same thing, that you will all be very different. You will all have your own unique way of showing up. You will have your own unique way of marketing yourself. You will have your own unique style as a therapist. And just by being you, you are unique. And so just by showing up and being yourself and showing your skills, showing what you how you work, how you're able to help people, the clients that are aligned with you, the clients that are looking for a therapist just like you, are going to be attracted to that because we all are aligned with different things. We all have different preferences. We all have different likes and different dislikes. So there will be potential clients out there that are looking for a therapist just like you. So you don't need to get caught up in the comparisonitis. You don't need to try and copy or model yourself off another therapist who is being really successful. What you just need to do is learn perhaps some of the skills that they're demonstrating. And a lot of this is just skills around marketing, skills around creating reels, those sorts of things. All you have to be practicing is, how do I learn these skills to help market myself, but doing it as me, showing up as me in a way that feels good for me, and in having the faith and the confidence in knowing that the client that feels right for me is going to find me. So that's one thing I would really say whenever you are noticing yourself, perhaps looking at what other therapists are doing, those therapists that you're perceiving as being highly successful, don't try to imitate what they're doing, and be inspired by what they're doing. Maybe learn some of the techniques and look at some of the strategies that they might be using in order to market themselves, but then use those skills in portraying and marketing yourself as you, and allowing your personality and your style and all of those sorts of aspects of you to come out in your marketing. Coming back to the point around perceiving other therapists as being more successful or that they're really killing it and, they're going viral with reels and they've got a wait list of clients and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, that's amazing. And I think we should be celebrating the fact that there are therapists who are building and filling a private practice on platforms like Instagram. Like, who'd have thought things like that would have been possible, like 10 years ago, that are now completely possible now. So we need to be celebrating that. But this brings me back to the interviews that I had with some of these therapists. What was actually really interesting in the conversations we had was, number one, the number of them that talked about the failures that had, the number of them that talked about. I remember a conversation with Elsie where she was talking about having courses that have totally bombed, So again, that I think a lot of the therapists that we might be looking at, that we might be comparing ourselves to, we're comparing where we are now versus where they might be at a very, very different stage in their private practice journey. And that in their journey, that it's quite likely that to get to that place of success that they've had, that it hasn't been a quick and easy journey for them, that it hasn't been an overnight success, and that the likelihood is that there have been a number of failures, a number of failed launches, a number of setbacks, a number of, courses that they've promoted and nobody has signed up for. All of these sorts of things will have undoubtedly happened, but that they have continued. They've picked themselves up afterwards, and that they have then continued on and eventually learnt from these setbacks, made changes, and it's got them to, or it's helped to get them to the place in which they are now in their private practice. So that was definitely something that was really interesting and really good to hear from those interviews, is just how many people had big stories of big setbacks, big disappointments, big flops in launches and things like that. The other thing, and this I think sometimes is a little bit of a reality check that we all need to have as well, is that there are some people who are just incredibly motivated, incredibly driven, and are incredibly determined to be successful and feel good and positive about that choice that they're making. And so another thing that did come across in some of the interviews is that some of the people were completely and utterly transparent in that they put a huge amount of time and a huge amount of effort into their marketing. Some of these therapists that have huge following are showing up every single day on social media, are posting every single day on Instagram. And so when you're doing something consistently enough, with enough focus and with enough drive, I mean, it is going to lead to success. And so for some of those therapists, for example, Sinead is one of them from Intuitive Eating Ireland. She had said, like, full disclosure, and she wasn't recommending it, by the way, that she had posted every single day content on her Instagram every single day for 4 years. So I would fully expect that she would have a real thriving business, a big following, and have an audience built up there that she can be selling courses and things too as well. So when I talk about the little bit of a reality check, like we can't sit as therapists, and maybe you're right at the beginning of your private practice journey. You can't sit at the beginning of your private practice journey and compare yourself to someone who might be 4 years or 5 years into that journey and expect you to be the same in terms of success. You also have to perhaps have the reality of, do I want what they're doing? It is giving this amount of time and this amount of energy to marketing to get to where they are in terms of their success level. Is that actually something that I want to be doing? Because if it's not, if you don't have that level of drive, if you don't want to be dedicating that amount of time to marketing your practice or learning the skills that they've done or whatever that is, then we also need to be realistic with ourselves that we maybe can't expect to be at a certain level or be at a certain place if we're then also not prepared to dedicate the time and the energy and the focus and the drive to it that essentially is needed. And you'll know I have said this before, that this learning the skills of business and marketing in private practice is tough. It's tough. There's a lot to it. It's a whole new skill set that we have to learn. It takes a lot of time, and we do need to put a lot of focus and a lot of energy to it. And if we're not prepared to do that, then we can't expect to have great results if we're not prepared to do that as well. So that's something I think that's where we need to really be honest with ourselves and realistic with ourselves, because there's no point feeling envy or comparing where you are with something that you don't want to do, or that your motivation or your commitment, may not be there for whatever reason. So if I was trying to pull all of that in and maybe get some little pointers, some little things for you to take away from this episode, I think the first thing would be, bear in mind rose-tinted glasses, that you might be looking at what other therapists are doing. You might be making lots of assumptions about success or what it is that they are doing. And that's potentially all they are. They are just assumptions, that it doesn't necessarily mean that things are going wonderfully or things are going fantastically for them. So just bear in mind rose-tinted glasses. The second thing, like I've just mentioned, is try not to compare where you are. If you're on your day one, don't be comparing your day one with someone else's day 1000. That they are two very, you're in one place and they're in another place. So you giving yourself a hard time about not being where they are is not going to serve you in any way, shape, or form. And I think the third and final thing is that if you do want that success, whatever success looks like, I keep saying success, but success looks totally different to different people. Success for me is having a steady income coming in on a small caseload and loving the work that I do and loving the client and the niche that I'm in. So success is going to look totally different for everybody. But whatever that success looks like for you, know that it absolutely is possible for you. And maybe what it actually just involves is learning and developing skills that we were not taught in our training, skills that, unless you happen to have a background in marketing or a degree in marketing or a previous career in marketing, skills that you potentially are learning from scratch. So try not to give yourself too much of a hard time when you feel like things aren't going very well, when you feel like you're not quite achieving, you're not quite attracting the clients that you want to attract, that it's just not going the way that you really hope and want it to go. You are trying to learn something completely new here, something that is not easy, that is going to take time to develop and master, but that you absolutely, with practice, when you find a way of marketing, a form of marketing, and you find your voice and you get comfortable with your voice and expressing that, once you find that, all you then need is the practice of gaining confidence in whatever way that looks like for you, and the consistency around it, that absolutely what other people have achieved can 100% be possible for you. All right. I hope that you find that podcast episode helpful today. If you do have any comments, any questions, please do put them into the show notes. And I look forward to speaking to you on the next episode. Bye for now. So that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you found the episode helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could share it with other counsellors and therapists in private practice. If you'd like to find out more about me and how I can help you build and grow your private practice, hop on over to my website, which is www.prosperinprivatepractice.com, and you'll also find me on Instagram under the same name. But until next time, I will see you soon. Take care.